What is going on, everyone in the ether? Welcome to the Bituation Room podcast live bonus episode. How many more adjectives can I add onto that? I am your host, Francesca Fiorentini. That's Matt Lieb.
Hey, I'm here again.
You might have seen him on Good Mythical Morning.
The Star Wars show.
I was getting there.
Okay.
News broke, which is a show that is coming back on AJ Plus in the fall.
Yeah, that's right. It is coming back. And so for those of you who feel the need to ask us, hey, what happened to News Broke? It's back again.
My favorite part about News Broke ending is we made a really big deal about it when it did. And now every time we release a new video, there's always someone who will straight up, in response to a new video, be like, man, I miss News Broke.
Yeah. And it's like, you're watching it. It's the new one. And
it's right there.
Look
at the timestamp.
Yeah, look at the time. The problem is that I think we thought the show was going to be over at one point in 2018 because, AJ Plus had moved to DC and we're like, we're not moving in DC. And then we said we did a goodbye episode.
Yeah, we milked that shit for all it was worth.
Yeah, and then they were like, hey, you want to do it in LA? And we were like, yep. And ever since, people have been like, when's News Broke coming back? It's been back over and over and over again.
And it's coming back. But this is the Bituation Room, OBS. And we have such a good show because we're going to talk all about what's going on in Portland and the, sort of Pinochet-like.
It's my favorite type of wine.
Yeah. A nice Pinochet.
An oaky Pinochet.
An oaky, just sort of veiny authoritarian. I don't know why. It's like just liver spots.
Yes.
And a steel boot.
And helicopters killing people. Dark.
But so we're talking all about Portland, and a friend and journalist, Arun Gupta, is here. I'm so excited to have him on, and I'm just happy to see everybody here. By the way, this is only for YouTube, Twitch, and the podcast. All those Facebook boomers can eat I don't know what.
Bowl of dicks.
Yeah.
I feel like you tried not to say that, and then I just said it out loud.
Well, because I remembered that actually when we ask for tips on this show, it's mostly the people on Facebook who give.
Oh, yeah. People on Facebook, they're older, and older people love to give unsolicited advice because they're older. Yeah. And one of the things of advice is you could swear less.
Oh, yeah. That's I get that all the time. Please don't swear.
It's so weird. I can't.
This is the unrated Bituation Room.
Yeah. We're going to say fuck. And no one's going to tell us not to do it.
Not even you, Mom.
Yeah.
Oh, it's hot in my apartment. Hi to Gary and Dino and Joseph and Tanish and Steven in the UK.
All the regulars.
And Kimberly and Kyle and KJ.
And Nikki and Dave and Dogface Pony Soldier.
Is there actual Dogface?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I see Dogface Pony Soldier.
Looking good, Dogface.
Well, before we get into it, we have to bitch about something. Quick bitch.
Yeah.
Bonus episode. Quick bitch.
Are you ready?
I'm ready for yours.
Okay.
Matt Lieb.
I got a quick bitch. It was based on an article that I saw today. It said the United States could see 500,000 fewer births in 2021 due to COVID. And it was an article that framed this as a disaster. And I said to myself, this is the only good news that we have had in the longest time. Fewer babies. Why is that good news? It's good news.
Because babies get big.
Babies get big and they become little tiny fascists. Everyone who's born. No.
They start believing in Q conspiracy.
Exactly. As soon as you're born, you start queuing. That's what I think Shakespeare said that. No, but but it's, we're a land of finite resources, not talking about America. I'm talking about Earth, the planet. And we could use a little bit of, a reduction in babies. Now, of course, it was framed as like an economic problem. It was like, because it's true that having less of a population can hurt your economy and can hurt, like social programs and this and that. But I'm like, I don't know. I could take a 1-year break from seeing my friends' baby photos.
Yeah. Yeah,
tired of it.
I'm trying to think about why it's an economic problem. Like, I know it's just like less cheap labor for Walmart.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But I'm also like, fewer mouths to feed.
Yeah. Fewer baby photos.
Fewer baby photos.
Less pressure to have a baby. Because it's spread evenly between everyone, because it's usually just us.
That's actually kind of bullshit. I think there's way more pressure to have a baby. If someone sees that you've been with someone for like 3 months, they're like, oh, you're in a stable relationship, gotta procreate.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine the moms in Children of Men, how fucking obnoxious they must be?
Oh my God.
Just like, that is how Children of Men started. It was Michael Douglas saying he wouldn't go down on women, and then moms getting on their daughters' cases or sons' cases about, when am I gonna be a grandma?
Yeah.
Then COVID hits. Fuck you.
Yeah, you have to think about that movie from the perspective of Jewish mothers specifically, who were just like, what do you mean no one's gonna have a baby? Like, that's bad. Someone wrote, less babies, more murders. COVID deaths, population going down. Is that really so bad? I don't know where more murders came from.
Less babies, more murders?
Not sure what that means, but you know what? I like that you're commenting.
Don't read my comments.
Sorry,
that's for the host to do.
That's true. And I'm just a guest. And not only am I just a guest, I'm only a bonus guest.
Oh, yeah.
It's the lowest type of guest there is. You've only had me on the bonus
There is no paywall, though, so you're not behind it.
Is there usually a paywall?
No, there's no. I'm saying there's no paywall.
Oh, yeah.
And that being said, everyone, since there's not a paywall, if you're listening to this in the future, give this podcast 5 stars. That'd be so awesome. Do that right now.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna bitch about something. It's so basic.
Go ahead, be basic.
Bitch ass Bill Barr.
Oh, he's a bitch.
I fucking hate Bill Barr.
Yeah, he's the worst.
Can we just like, so there was a hearing with Bill Barr in it, which was like, are you corrupt? Which, first of all, let's just bitch about how partisan these hearings are. Like, I'm definitely not the person. I think a lot of media is like, wow, it's like they were talking past one another. The Democrats didn't let him get a single word in. It's like, yeah, because he's a goon.
Yeah.
He's a hired goon. We all know that. He's a loyalist.
Yeah.
And the point is to do exactly what Pramila Jayapal did. Use it as an opportunity to point out his hypocrisy in front of the world.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if someone said $20 admission, you get to go and yell at Attorney General William Barr for 10 minutes, I would in a second, just to get the chance to yell.
That's like why I would run for Congress.
Honestly, yeah, it makes sense to spend lots and lots of money to become a congressperson so that you can yell at people that are just destroying the world. I get it.
Yeah. I mean, I think Congress, especially Democrats, are their hands are tied by the GOP, by congressional leaders. So that's all you got.
Yeah. It's what you have.
You got your 2 minutes of questioning. Reclaim all your time.
Reclaim that time, girl.
But Bill Barr, if you guys watched it, he was so obnoxious. He was talking all over the questions. He was super defensive, and just like, once again, in this administration of obvious corrupt, like, assholes, it is so clear by their behavior. Like, it would take nothing on his part to be just quiet, just answer yes or no, just preserve some dignity. But it goes to show how much impunity there is right now, because he's talking back. He feels it's his right to do so. Yeah. And also said, would you respect the results of the election? And he was like, yeah, if they were shown to be fair, yes. Yeah. Like, nobody. That's not an answer. Yeah. It's just yes or no. It's just yes. In fact, there is just one answer. It's yes. It's not if they were correct. I mean, if it seemed like there wasn't any meddling, but we're working on a plan right now. So give me time.
Honestly, it really is like, it is a real question about whether or not this administration would give up power peacefully if they were voted out. And the fact that that's even a question just proves that we're in a timeline that doesn't deserve more babies. You know what I mean?
There you go. Yeah.
We don't need no more babies. sorry to bring back the baby bust again, but I'm just like, it's a real question. Like, is this administration going to give up power if they lose? And I really can't answer that.
I think all the administration officials who've spoken about that have not been determinative. They have not been, it hasn't been open and shut. Jared was like, I don't know, maybe.
I love Bimbo Jared. It's a great voice.
Yeah.
Hey, it's me, Jared. I'm going to solve the Middle East.
Could you guys just like stop fighting?
I was thinking about it. And what if Israel and Palestine was cool?
And to the Palestinian people, I just say like, shh.
Yeah. And Israel, could you just do whatever you want with impunity and have people not yell at me about it? Thank you.
Anyway, I'd like to talk about my 16-step skincare routine.
Oh, God.
He definitely has a 16-step skincare routine.
I mean, if you can call that skin.
It's I'm not trying to be flesh over the robot.
I know, that's the thing.
Parts.
I'm not one of those, like, rich people are lizards, but they are.
That was in quotes if you're listening as a podcast in the future.
Rich people are lizards, quotes. Those are air quotes, and so therefore sarcastic.
Yeah, but fuck Barr, that Barney Rubble authoritarian piece of shit. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm swearing a lot. Sorry. I'm glad we're not on Facebook.
Oh, they would be so mad.
But speaking of authoritarianism and green lights to repress one's own population, and the fact that we are now basically a failed state as a country, and I want to move over to Portland. I think a lot of people have been following what's going on. Some have not been. Some, I think, like myself, were late to it because we weren't searching for local media, which I think has done a really good job of covering it. National media, not so much. But so for over 2 months, there's been 62 consecutive days of demonstrations, obviously spurred by the killing of George Floyd. And Trump deployed U.S. Marshals and Customs and Border Patrol. I don't know exactly when, but as of a few weeks ago, after they did so in Seattle. I don't know if you guys remember, like, Seattle was the first to enjoy just like cloudfuls of tear gas. Then that moved to Portland. Now that is going to be deployed to cities across the country, including Memphis, Albuquerque, Chicago, Baltimore, as a push to supposedly crack down on crime. A lot of people are calling this Trump's secret police. Once again, remember, these two entities function under Customs and Border Patrol, and the U.S. Marshals function under the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, which is the biggest federal department in the country. It's huge. So when someone talks about defunding the police or defunding Border Patrol, they don't know. They have so much fucking time and resources and machinery to repress us. They don't know what they're doing. They literally are like, they are twiddling their thumbs. They have so much of our taxpayer dollars.
It is really the only thing keeping us from full-fledged fascism is the fact that the federal government and law enforcement agencies are run by people who use Facebook incorrectly. Like, if they knew how to use any of the military grade technology that they have for spying and for crowd control and all the weapons, researched weapons. If they knew how to use any of it, we'd be dust. But, they can't even ignore a phishing email that steals all of their passwords. So
that was Podesta, though. But yes.
I mean, right. I'm including Podesta in that as well. I'm just talking about old people in general. If it wasn't run by old people, these computers would be used to destroy us. Lizard people.
That's why China's got an advantage in Russia, because everyone.
Right.
It's just like behind the Wizard of Oz curtain. It's just a bunch of 12-year-olds.
Yeah, because both those countries, I assume, use younger people in their government when it comes to computer stuff. Whereas like here, it's all favors for favors, Well,
yeah, we got to take it to the streets to repress. Anyway, so apparently also this week, Chad Wolf, the acting DHS secretary, who's been talking to the Oregon governor, and it looks like this extra police, these Customs and Border Patrol and U.S. Marshals, will be leaving and replaced by Oregon State Police. So what that means, I would like to put to our guest who has been on the ground in Portland and has been reporting from there, and also is just a great follow on Twitter, and is a friend of mine from back in the day in New York when we would organize together circa Iraq war protest, WTO, global justice movement. This is some deep New York activist, homie, the original cantankerous lefty, I think. He's a journalist. He has written for the Washington Post, the Intercept, the Daily Beast, Jacobin. He has a book coming out in a couple years because, listen to this title. It's going to take him a while. It's called Bacon as a Weapon of Mass Destruction. Please welcome Mr. Arun Gupta.
Hey, great to be with you guys.
Great to have you.
Yeah.
Arun, you're currently in Portland. You're stuck
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I got trapped here. A couple of months ago, and I was supposed to come back to New York, and I was like, I'm having second thoughts about getting on an airplane and going into the epicenter of the plague. And
what made you go out there initially?
I come out to the West Coast a lot. I just enjoy it. There's also a lot of good reporting up and down the West Coast that I do. Seattle, LA, Portland. I've been
good for him.
How much of it had to do with how good our weed is, bruh?
Oh, totally. I am. Yeah. I am the weed taster for the Financial Times.
Nice, dude.
Yeah.
You jest, but I feel like that's a role you could get in like 10 years, Arun. If
No. The Denver Post, like 3 years ago, hired a guy to be the weed reviewer.
That's amazing.
I'm going to drop all of my equipment.
She was so taken aback that she just threw all of the recording equipment off the table.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Weed taster.
But
wrong.
Portland has seltzer, which is really important if you're from New York. Like when I first started coming out a few years ago, they had no seltzer game. Now they got seltzer.
That's
seltzer.
good.
You brought out the seltzer.
Seltzer is such a specific drink. It's because it's people. A lot of people think seltzer is just bubbly water, but it's not.
No.
It's so much more than that. It's
terrible.
It's terrible.
It's like it's like Antifa on your tongue.
Yes, exactly.
Just tiny little Molotov cocktails in your tongue.
Punching all the little taste bud Nazis, and you're just like, ouch.
It's a bunch of white. I was looking back at the Portland PD saying, "Look at all the things we recovered from, the protest."
A half-eaten apple and a White Claw.
And a full White Claw.
Yeah. Well, I think White Claw's the new Pepsi. There was Kylie Jenner was in the crowd and was just saying, like, "Here, officer, this is a peace gesture."
Exactly.
She's trying to get that deal right now. I shit you not, Arun.
Exactly.
Just tell me, we've been on the streets together in a few demonstrations, but all very generally tame, not always. But what has this been like? Has it felt different? And just what's it been like on the streets?
Oh my God, it is. So it's not a war. There's a international war correspondent, one of these crusty Brits who's spent decades hopscotching from war zone to war zone, and now he's in Portland covering. And so I was like, "How's this compared to a real war?" And he's like, he's like, a real war has more machetes and dead bodies.
Yeah.
But
less fireworks.
The only way to describe it is a war zone. But I want to back up, since we're talking about Nazis, and give a little bit of context. Folks probably have heard that Oregon is this super racist state structurally, not like you just got some people who use sling the N-word. It was founded as a white supremacist state. It is so racist that its current police force includes this guy, Captain Kruger, Mark Kruger, who about 20, so one of the highest ranking officials, about 20 years ago, he was caught nailing plaques of fallen Nazis to trees in a park, that creating a Nazi war memorial in the Portland area. He called this an Ehrenbaum, or an honor tree. The guy was also a friend of his, shared videos of him posing in German uniforms, and said as kids they would like drive around and like yell Sieg Heil at black people. So this guy, by all accounts, is like a full-blown Nazi, a senior ranking official. The city tried to discipline him, and in the end they ended up expunging his record and paying him a settlement.
Wow.
This is, Google it, Mark Kruger Nazi Memorial.
So it's not just the wildlife refuge dudes.
It's all sorts of
where I was at,
people.
right? Where I was at the Bundy occupation for the last week. So and those guys were like acquitted, right? It's just like, hey, you can go in with like massive armaments, take over this federal land, and you'll still get care packages, and you'll be acquitted because you're upstanding white folks. But if you throw a half-eaten apple at some federal military units, you're like a terrorist number one.
And they'll throw you into an unmarked van. It's
exactly. So the people have to understand, like, the context for this is that the Portland police were being completely brutal. This is why protests were going on night after night after night, these Black Lives Matter protests, because, in a lot of city, it's just like the police are like, oh, you're protesting against police brutality? Here, have some more. In Portland, they were using tear gas, rubber bullets, pepper balls. It got so bad that the ACLU had to sue them over how many journalists and legal observers that were caught, who were filmed being beaten, gassed, and arrested by the Portland police after they identify themselves. So it'd be like, hello. This is within the last 2 months. So
this is before the federal police. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Right.
Before they came in.
Right.
Exactly. So this is the whole context why the feds are here in the first place, because of the brutality of the Portland police. Totally racist. They. People can look at my reporting on the Intercept, Raw Story, elsewhere, as well as, plenty of other journalists. I would particularly point out Jason Wilson, who's been covering this for years at The Guardian, Katie Shepard, who's now at the Washington Post. She was covering this all at the Willamette Week, about how the Portland police were in effect collaborating with these white nationalists who were coming to Portland and having these riots. And it was absolutely insane. It was, like, there were reporters who were like, I was in Charlottesville, and these riots were worse than what I saw in Charlottesville.
You're
and
talking about sort of over the years, as Portland has become kind of this hub for a lot of right wingers to sort of, hey, we know there's a lefty center.
Right.
We're going to go in and put the kibosh on that. You mean leading up to this moment? So
this starts. The recent history starts in 2017. I wrote a piece explaining the background in the Intercept called Riotlandia. Just look that up. The quick story is the Pacific Northwest has historically been this site of a white identity, a Christian identity, neo-Nazis, because it is so white. But then in Portland area, there's developed this significant anti-fascist resistance. The Wobblies were, of course, very strong here at the beginning of the century, so it has that legacy as well.
Wobblies?
Yeah. So
the industrial workers of the world.
IWW.
Oh, they were called Wobblies?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The dope name.
It's a dope name, right?
Yep. One big union,
Yeah.
So in any case, starting in 2017, Portland becomes this kind of staging ground for white nationalist rallies, Patriot Prayer, Proud Boys. In 2018, they become these totally just insane riots that the Portland police abet. I was at one riot in August of 2018 where the Portland police attacked the anti-fascists. They just unleashed this barrage of potentially deadly munitions. I don't even like to use the term less lethal, right? Because they can kill. These flashbang grenades, the tear gas canisters, the rubber bullets, all these things. They can kill, and they do kill frequently. So they unleash it. They hit this guy in the back of the head. The only reason he wasn't killed was because it was its helmet. Helmet saved him. It punched through the helmet and still gave him a TBI, a traumatic brain injury, right?
Wow.
And so there were other people who were also severely injured. I wrote about that for the Daily Beast, so folks could find that. But what that did is, so you had anti-fascists, cops, and then like 500, and I was among these like fascists, white nationalists, neo-Confederates. They're openly walking with all sorts of weapons, knives, axes, cans of bear spray. A lot of them have backpacks and likely packing weapons.
And just the smallest penises.
Yeah.
Well, you got to compensate. You got to compensate somewhere.
Yeah,
it's the lightest. It's the easiest part to carry.
It's the if you're not packing down there, then you got to pack up here. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So cops attack the anti-fascists. That allows a fascist to come into the city and start attacking people. And it's just like, this is like pretty, if it's not intentional, it's intentional.
Right.
So this is the background for the current protests and the police violence, and why yet again Portland has become this kind of testing ground for fascism.
Right. And where have the white nationalists been this whole time? Are they like standing by like, hell yeah? Are they infiltrating? Are they like...
Or are they all in ICE uniforms right now currently?
Well, yeah, that too. And it was also in 2018 was where the whole Occupy ICE movement started in Portland as well. And they were showing up there trying to provoke people. They've been laying pretty, in the major urban areas, they've been laying pretty low. They'll sometimes come out and try to provoke people. It's more in the rural areas.
Yeah,
sure.
So in the state of Oregon, the Washington Post a couple of weeks ago had this article about how Black Lives Matter has spread to small towns, and over 60 small towns in Oregon, these like armed white nationalist militias have either come out with guns or threatened protesters with violence. Over 60 towns, in Oregon. So like people like Portlandia is, it's the worst goddamn show in the world because it's just like
it's misrepresentative. It's a liberal progressive town, or even neighborhoods inside of a town, a city, then surrounded by predominantly white and fairly conservative, if not very conservative.
Yeah, every time I've traveled up to Portland to do like comedy shows or Bridgetown, it's always like you're driving up to Portland and it's just sheep and Confederate flags, and you're like, oh, this isn't what I thought Oregon was. And then you get to Portland, and you're like, oh, I must be safe. But then you are surrounded by a sea of white faces, and you're like, this feels the same. And it's a strange...
Are these vegans friendly?
It's a strange feeling, because you say Oregon was founded as a kind of a white nationalist state, and not much has changed, is kind of the feeling of it. Like,
well, it was founded, so it was illegal for Black and mixed race people to live there under the state constitution. Originally, at one point in like the 1850s, they were supposed to be flogged every 6 months, publicly flogged if they were found living. Yeah, no shit. Well, basically, every state
flogging.
West of
flogging.
Mississippi was founded as like this white supremacist.
Sure.
Sure, they kept on moving. They're like, here there'll be no people of color. Wait, you guys move. Now there'll be no people of color. Can I just ask you back to just what's going on now? Because before we get too deep, I want to talk about the people who are in the streets. Like, we've seen these walls of moms. We've seen these walls of veterans. We saw that Navy vet get brutalized after he was trying to go up to a police officer and ask him a question, right? Like, who are the kinds of people on the streets, and maybe sort of like racial makeup? I know that Portland's only something like 6% Black. These protests are effectively Black Lives Matter protests. Are you seeing that reflected in who is out there?
Well, it's I've been going out the last couple of weeks when it became clear that these events are not super spreaders of the Rona, and virtually everyone is masked up because they're getting gassed by the cops. So it is absolutely astonishing to see like a city in rebellion. This is like a middle, it's just like everyone now is Antifa. I mean, it's doctors and lawyers and chefs and teachers and Teamsters and homeless youths and drifters. And it's led, Black Lives Matter is very much in the forefront. And of course, it's important not to lose focus of that, but it has also become about the basic right to protest. But the police violence, which before, the ACLU was just like, the protests have been overwhelmingly peaceful. The Portland police have responded with the indiscriminate use of force, and their tactics keep getting more and more severe. Right. The federal police are even more violent. And so they are shooting munitions directly at people's head, right? The first incident, so the federal police, as near as folks can figure out, start appearing on the streets assaulting people on July 1st. That's a first report. It's July 12th when they shoot the young man, Donovan LaBella, in the head. He's standing across the street from him, doing his John Cusack high fidelity, holding up a speaker. Right. The feds shoot some munition at him. He leans over, picks it up, just tosses it a few feet, goes back to holding up the speaker, and boom. And, it was horrifying. They nearly killed him. So that's the first instance. Then a few days later, we get, the grainy Pinochet footage of, the secret police, scooping people up and tossing them into unmarked vans. And that's what really caused national attention to explode. Before then, the protests were actually down to I started going out slightly before that, and they were down to a few hundred, but even those had grown because it was getting a lot of local attention.
Right. That's something that I think is really interesting, is that, when you go to a protest, you can sense and know when things are dwindling. Like, you go to a protest, you can see where the energy is going, or you go out the next day and there's fewer people. And it sounded like everything was essentially dying down, that it was like there were still people out on the streets, but it was peaceful. It truly was peaceful. And there were fewer and fewer people. And then the federal police decided to basically kick a hornet's nest and start it all up again, rather than sort of allowing, some graffiti on a federal building to keep happening. Right.
What was interesting was that from what I was seeing, most of the national right-wing press attention was for about a month settled on Seattle and the autonomous zone that they had over there. You had people being like, they're occupying this, Capitol Hill. This is the beginning of the leftist takeover. Fox News talking point about Chaz, or whatever they ended up calling. Chop. Both great names. But the attention, there wasn't even really national attention on what was going on in Portland. And I'm wondering what changed, what made this, where did the directive come from the top?
Little bitch Bill Barr. I mean, back to Bill Barr.
But does Bill Barr have a cousin who is living in Portland and what? I'm wondering why it happened there first. And like, I would have expected it at CHOP, more so than in Portland. And so I am kind of wondering how.
Well, they did. So, okay, so we'll go through this really fast. So, June 26th, Trump issues this executive order about protecting Monument because, Monument lives matter, right?
Right.
Bronze lives matter.
Yeah. Bronze lives matter.
Exactly. I got a nice kind of bronze tan.
Exactly. You're like, I am bronze.
So he issues this executive order, and Chad Wolf, and can I just say Chad Wolf? I mean, Chad Wolf sounds like this neo-Nazi terror cell of incels.
Chad Lone Wolf.
Yeah.
In some upscale Dallas suburb that was rejected by the Boogaloo Boys because they're not old enough to drive. I mean, what the hell is Chad Wolf anyway?
I saw Arun referred to Chad as Chud Wolf, and I definitely like that. That's a good change, Arun.
We watched Chud recently. Folks should watch Chud. This is part of our history. Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers.
Absolutely.
A young John Goodman, so
Ooh.
definitely worth checking out. I haven't checked out the sequel, Bud to Chud, but Chud is definitely worth checking out. Or maybe it's Chuds, I don't know.
It makes sense. Oh, or Chud 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Electric Boogaloo Boys. Holy shit. I'm putting the pieces together, man.
I know. So Chud Wolf creates the Monument Guardians, you know. I mean, this is just and then they create this thing called Operation Diligent Valor. And then there's Operation Legend. I mean, basically, Trump is just this, syphilitic, flatulent slug who just belches out commands and then all the little workers ants who hoist his corpulent diseased body around, scurry, trying to reverse engineer his whims to look like actual policies. So this is what is going on. So they create this Monument Guardian task force, and they're drawing from DHS, from ICE and Border Patrol and U.S. Marshals and Coast Guard, and it's just what the hell is the Coast Guard doing in the cities anyway? And they include this militarized Border Patrol unit, BORTAC. People keep saying oh, it's like SWAT. No, they model themselves on the Navy SEALs. And there's a recently good piece in The Guardian talking about how they see anyone they oppose as an enemy combatant.
Who, BORTAC?
BORTAC, right? I mean, it sounds like
an extermination company.
Sounds like Artak's brother from Neverending Story.
Yeah, exactly.
Fight against the sadness, and then it just drowns. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And there's this Border Patrol whistleblower, former Border Patrol agent, who she said they are the most violent and racist agency in law enforcement. We also get this Homeland Security memo. It's just these dudes actually have no training in crowd control or riot control. They're trained to take down, El Chapo,
Right, yeah.
So you're basically sending it is the Proud Boys, the government Proud Boys, to Portland to commit random acts of violence and senseless terrorism.
It sounds I mean, I'm trying to understand, why people keep going out every night. I think that's when you're not there, you're not from Portland, you don't know how the police have been protecting white supremacists for so long. I think you're helping contextualize that, yes, this is about George Floyd, it's about Black lives, it is about ending police violence, but that it's also about ending the police protection of white nationalism and these white militias that's been happening specifically in Oregon and Portland for so long. So it makes sense. There's always that well, is this really about, George Floyd anymore? And I know I'm not saying the protest should continue forever and ever, and there should constantly be a nightly standoff. I don't think that's necessarily productive, but I'm trying to, as an outsider, understand, empathize with the outrage, right? And the fact that it's an entire city saying enough.
So I think that's a really important question, because I have all these liberals coming at me asking me variations on that, and and they're telling me what needs to happen, and I'm like, I'm not the general of Antifa, okay?
But you have a beard.
yeah, but I don't got the circle A in my forehead,
That's true.
in the pentagram, and the 8 ball, that Stella Manuel says is teaching kids witchcraft. So it's just they're not gonna listen to me. Two, it's just it's astonishing. It's a mass uprising. I mean, the neighborhood where I'm staying in, there's architects and school teachers and just every college. And the thing is, people are going out to peacefully protest, and they're getting shot in the goddamn fucking head and face. There's a college professor at Lewis and Clark, history professor. She is shot in the head. These just people are standing there and peacefully protesting. But I think the real issue is, no one in this country, especially liberals, have ever seen anything like this. And in Portland, they get it finally, because of after years. And so they don't understand the reality, and this isn't a criticism, it's the reality. Politics, especially for upper middle class liberals, is consumption, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about what clothing you wear.
I have a feminist T-shirt on, Arun. I feel seen.
Well,
I feel outed.
Got nice rainbow on it, so you pass, and but are you a white presenting woman of color, Naked Athena? And that question is directed at Matt.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Matt could definitely get away with being full buck naked in front of federal police.
Yeah. I mean,
actually, in fact, I could think of no other person to just spread cheek.
Yeah, spread eagle on the ground, roll out my sack like a red carpet, tell people. So why they call me Long Ball Lieb. All right.
Okay.
Oh my God. So this question of when does it end? What's the point?
Here's the thing. Folks have to understand that I don't like using disease when talking about social movements, but I cover social movements on both the left and right. And fascism is a disease. It is going to spread unchecked, right?
Yep.
If you do not, you cannot just be like, oh, dope-de-do, let's just go home and sit in our home.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because this was the thing with the white nationalist militias. They were coming here to provoke violence. If no one showed up, they would go out and attack people.
Mm-hmm.
And what they also do is they're instigators of stochastic terrorism. And so this is what ISIS does, where it calls for attacks, and it's not directing individual people, but it's trying to incite people. So these lone Chad wolves that so they're not really lone Chud wolves, because they're incited. And this is what Donald Trump is an instigator of stochastic terrorism, right? Cesar Sayoc, the MAGA bomber, Robert Bowers, the guy who went into the Tree of Life synagogue, ranting about refugee caravans coming in in October 2018, when Trump was making this the central issue.
Yeah.
Patrick Crusius, the guy who killed 20-something Hispanic people at the El Paso, his manifesto sounds like a Trump campaign rally. Not
to mention all of, I saw you tweeted an article about this, and I think everyone should remember and read this. I think it's something like 75 attacks on BLM protesters by cars that have happened in these months, right? And some of them deliberate. All of them essentially deliberate, whether they were armed and got out and started shooting, like what happened in Austin, or they were just I think these protesters deserve to be run into. And of course, it's all reminiscent of Unite the Right and the killing of Heather Heyer. And this is my thing. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna have to go off. I we sit there and we listen to lawmaker after lawmaker on the Republican side ask Bill Barr about the lawlessness in supposedly Portland, and not one single police officer or white supremacist has been killed. No one has been killed. And yet on the other side, how many people have been killed from white supremacist violence and terrorism? So many. And just in these months alone.
Yeah.
And if we're lumping in the police with them, which hell, let's do it, then God, your numbers go up even higher. So it's like there is no moral equivalence here. There is no it is just it's completely false to say that Antifa has blood on their hands when they clearly do not.
Yeah. At worst, they have like a little bit of milkshake on their hands from throwing it at a cop's face.
It's all White Claw.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, of course you don't see the Justice Department going after it. In fact, you see the exact opposite, where Republicans at the state level have introduced bills to actually indemnify people from running over protesters with vehicles. You've seen all these cops, so many times share memes of like pickup trucks running over people and saying "all lives splatter." It's just like they are actually you have one side who's actually encouraging terrorism, and this state is encouraging terrorism, but the point is people are turning out because they are forced to turn out, right? It doesn't. So what happened in Portland is these first far-right rallies incited this neo-Nazi. This guy, Jeremy Christian, shows up at one of these first Patriot Prayer rallies in April 2017. He's caught on film doing Zeke Heil, yelling, "Die Muslims, die." Weeks later, he is verbally threatening two women of color, one of whom who is Muslim, on a public train. Right. 3 white men come to their defense. He murders 2 of them. Right. So this is the thing. You cannot, and the liberals have finally gotten it, which is good. But it's sad that this is what it eventually has taken, that you cannot hide.
Yeah.
Right. Because the last point. So if you just sit in your house, then 6 months or a year later, are you or your daughter going to be able to go to the clinic for reproductive health? Are you going to be able to go vote and ensure your vote is going to be counted and that it matters? They will keep extending this authoritarian violence. And so people now understand, and it's just like, basically you now have a city of anti-fascists.
That's great. I mean, in some ways, oh God, this is such a great conversation, Arun. I have so many thoughts and questions. And one thought I absolutely agree with you that if we don't exercise our freedom, it will be gone. And I think a lot of folks are galvanized when they finally do take the streets because they realize that they were literally on a sidewalk with a sign and they got brutalized. I've been there and I'm like, oh man, not again, but like you don't know how little freedom you have as an American until you try to use it. And you don't understand that we live in a police state until you try to actually say something that is minimally critical of the police. I come back to, we will lose the violence game. Like Antifa, no matter what, I don't believe in getting, bigger weapons, but even if we did, they're not there. We don't have the non-lethal munitions, the tanks, the shields, everything. Like it's always a losing game. And so that to me is what Americans are faced with, which is, okay, we will always lose to the authoritarians' violence. What do we do? You know what I mean? And obviously there is militant nonviolence. I definitely believe in that. I believe in numbers. I believe in overwhelm. We've seen that work throughout time, right? From the civil rights movement to anti-colonial struggles, the ways that a mass number of people acting together in nonviolence actually over and over and over and over again over a sustained period of time will win. And it's a fucking slog. I'm just like, I feel like so much of our fatalism is very much, well, we gotta arm up or we gotta fight back. And it's like, you're gonna lose that game.
So can I just point out again, that's a really important point, because I think what's getting lost is so part of the issue with what's going on in Portland is, one, you have the police is committing this horrific violence that sets the stage for the feds to come in. Two, the Portland police are cooperating with the feds in the ongoing violence now. Even though the city council has banned them, the police are like, yeah, fuck you. How many guns do you have, city council? And so we have these out of control police departments. But three, and going to get all Marxist on you, this is part of the dialectic. So you have the material aid that the police and the mayor, Tear Gas Teddy, let's not forget, Tear Gas Teddy Wheeler is a police commissioner, and he has been endorsing and supporting all this violence. And he goes out for a photo op to get tear gas and like, oh, boo-hoo, look at me, I'm getting tear gas, even though his pigs have been tear gassing people for well over a month. But part of the dialectic, material and ideological. So Wheeler and the police have been painting these protests as violent, as criminal, as anarchists. And anarchist does not mean violent, thank you very much. For well over a month before the Fed showed up, and the ACLU, and this is very important, it is overwhelmingly nonviolent. It is peaceful, people peacefully resisting, and people also don't know their own history. Like, I have this college friend, again, one of these liberals who thinks I'm the general of Antifa, and he's a medical doctor, and he's like, they need to just engage in Gandhian nonviolence. And I'm like, you know what? Just shut the fuck up, because that's precisely what they are doing. Yeah. You also don't understand the fucking Indian independence movement or the civil rights movement, because it's always a mix of tactics.
Yeah.
You cannot control everyone. This is not, you are the queen bee and you just send out your pheromones, and everyone, does a yoga pose in the street and goes, non-violence, non-violence. That's not how it fucking works, okay?
No,
we can't all spread our butt cheeks and put our asshole to the street,
Oh, and no one, and what's remarkable is no one, and it's just like, look, I was out a few nights ago, I'm watching these federal military shooting munitions directly at people's heads. A good friend of mine, he caught on tape, I tweeted it out, this munition coming straight at his face, and it hits his camera.
Wow.
Okay, so they are trying to kill people who are peacefully
targeting media. And potentially targeting people documenting.
There's all these journalists who there was a National Geographic photographer who his posts have gone viral. He showed his gas mask, the munition went straight through it.
Wow.
Right. So people are not coming out to battle. They're coming out to defend themselves. Sure. Are fireworks being thrown over? Is some crap being thrown over? Whatever. It's minor. Yeah. And you saw this stuff in India. There was guerrilla movements in India killing Brits. People don't know this shit, right? There's also all the stories about in the 50s, people visiting Martin Luther King, and his home was like an arsenal, right?
Yeah.
There's also, I forget the name of the Black Defenders. That was a precursor to the Black Panther Party. So it's always a mix of tactics. Don't be like, oh, it's all nonviolent, but it's 98% of it is peaceful protesting, and they're getting shot in the head.
Yes, and I think that there is something. I think when you're on the street and when you understand what militant nonviolence is, what direct action is, what civil disobedience is, you understand it is not violence, it is militancy, and there is a difference. And once again, there is no blood on these anti-fascists. And by the way, let's just call them by their Christian name or their Muslim name, which is anti-fascist, because I heard a Republican lawmaker, I don't remember which one, they really all blend together. And he was like, these Antifa fascist totalitarian. It's like, okay, get it. Time out, buddy. Time out.
Yeah.
Antifa fascist.
Yeah.
That's like saying, just like slut virgin.
Yeah.
Doesn't work. You can't.
Wow, you know any?
Yeah.
I mean, they're all born again. It is possible.
I was a slut virgin for a long, long time. I just want to point that out. It just means you find really creative ways to get yourself off.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Arun, I mean, I think what I've learned from what you're saying also is that actually a whole city has been galvanized. Now, federal police and Customs and Border Patrol and marshals and BORTAC are being sent to Chicago and to Albuquerque and to Milwaukee. What do you think these cities have in store for them? And like, now that they're pivoting to, hey, we've tested it on Portland, now let's go after specifically communities of color, Black people, brown people, and under the guise of fighting crime. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the Albuquerque one is interesting in particular because I just wrote a couple of pieces in the Raw Story last month about this Trump alternate delegate, Stephen Baca, who is also part of the Tea Party leadership, who he shot and seriously wounded a protester when they were trying to take down this statue of Juan de Ornata, this like horrific genocidal conquistador who is the founder, right? So there's actually, I started documenting these cases of like Trump campaign volunteers, Trump supporters who were engaging in violence. This guy in Omaha, Nebraska, who killed a young Black man early on, was a Trump campaign volunteer in 2016. The guy who drove his tractor trailer into thousands of protesters in Minneapolis on the highway, which could have been a horrific massacre, was donated to the Trump campaign. Imagine if they were like Biden supporters, God, out there like Biden delegates shooting and killing people. I mean, you would have like Bill Barr already dragging, arresting Biden and dragging him off to Guantanamo. So this is part of the whole like topsy-turvy nature of the situation. And I forgot your question.
Oh, I was just saying, like, what do you think about this expanding to these other cities?
Right. So, I mean, it's interesting. It's with Trump again. It's just like. So I'm talking to folks in Albuquerque, because I'm familiar with the organizing there, and what they hear is like no one's even supposed to show up until August, and these federal police forces, and that they're supposed to be like doing this like fighting crime with. I keep getting weird camera stuff.
It's like a J.J. Abrams movie. The sun flare is beautiful.
And so no one is supposed to is sure what exactly is happening, right? This is like Trump, where like it's just like we got the best test. They're beautiful. Anyone can get a test. Just because he says it doesn't mean it's true. In fact, because he says it, it's likely not true. No one knows what it's going to look like until it actually happens on the ground. When they sent them to Portland, they actually sent them to 4 different places, right? They sent them to Portland, Seattle, DC, and Gettysburg, because July 4th was Chudstock. You had all these like bikers for Trump and white nationalists coming out to defend Gettysburg because they heard that busloads of Antifa are going to come here and burn.
This is one of the best stories of the year thus far.
I missed it. So a bunch of people came to Gettysburg.
It was this like, it was Chudstock. I mean, it was all like, brewed aftershave and guys in Oakleys in their pickup trucks, and
they all roll around in the mud together.
Yeah, and they all are like stroking their magazines, and it just was, and there was a good Washington Post report on it, because like this one African American man, like a minister, shows up because he has a relative who's buried there, and all these chuds are like fucking harassing him and pushing him around, and he's just like, I was just coming to pay respect to my ancestors, you know.
Because the story is that no one showed up. It was just a completely like, I don't know, it was a Facebook post.
Yeah,
who knows? Maybe it was the Russians. We don't know. But it was just like, we're gonna go to Gettysburg and tear down monuments, blah blah blah. Chudstock happens, and they just are like, I don't know, let's harass this person.
Yeah, this has happened a few times with fake posts where everyone thinks Antifa is about to take over their town. So then all the chuds like march and wear like, like ancient battle shields and stuff. They're like, we're ready to fight Antifa, and no one shows up. And so they just look like a bunch of losers that they are. It's a fun troll.
I mean, basically, there's some like law, it's, I don't know, maybe it's like Newton's fourth law of thermodynamics. Like, the whiter the area, the more stupid white men with bigger guns show up. Because in Coeur d'Alene, I mean, Coeur d'Alene is like whiter than a Klan rally. You had like hundreds of these chuds show up because Antifa's coming to town, and the guns they showed up with, it's just like, holy fucking shit. It's just like, there are pictures of like this guy with this massive assault rifle. It's so big, it has one of those tripods on front, and he's got like a banana clip, the size of like a goddamn banana tree.
Even his stand-in dick has a dick.
Right. he put truck nuts on his fucking gun.
Arun, I just want to say there's something really important that I wanted to ask you about, and it has to do with another passion of yours, which is cooking. I think you need to tell us all about riot ribs and your thoughts.
Oh my God. I mean, here's the thing. Like, are
they good? Are they just not that good of ribs?
Well, no, the whole thing collapsed in a shit show. Because
infighting?
It's infighting and performative wokeness. And I mean, this is a thing that kind of Portlandia does get right about Portland. It's this like painful, like really, it's not just a self-parody. It's really self-destructive. The wall of moms has imploded.
Oh no. Did someone like bring up vaccines or something?
No, it's just like these accusations of anti-blackness, and just like, let me say something, since we're all people of color here. I mean, hey, you're a Jew. You're like the original race mixers. You're like DJ race mix.
Yeah.
We were just
race mix. It's the funniest troll for an air. Like, I want to set up a fake event with a DJ named DJ Race Mix and get all the white nationalists to come out.
I just keep playing songs by like Elvis and then also Public Enemy. And Donny Osmond albums with hip hop beats. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Public Elvis. I think that's a mashup that needs to happen. Like Burn, Tennessee Burn. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I just want to say, Jews, we were subverting the white race before everyone else was. Way before it was cool. So
way before it was cool, right? Yeah. So there's this real problem of politics is not identity, and that is a huge problem in Portland because it's so white. There's 38,000 African Americans in all of Portland. There are neighborhoods in Brooklyn that have, like, Bed-Stuy probably has more African Americans. There's like 1 million African Americans in Brooklyn alone, right? So this creates a real problem where people will follow whatever Black leader, and there's some great, Black political leaders out here. There's people who are good speakers, but being a good speaker doesn't make you a good organizer, Then there are people who are crappy organizer, and then there are also a couple of grifters,
It's hard.
So, and what happens is, like, and the mayor is playing this shit as well. So he is putting forward these like black voices, that he's saying. Sorry, I keep moving us around because of it's just the weird J.J. Abrams is fucking with me. So he keeps putting forward these black voices, like the former leader of the NAACP had an op-ed in the Washington Post, and no one pays fucking attention to him, even though he's black. And it's just like, oh, they're hijacking the rally. Well, tell that to all the black young folk who are out at the rally night after night after night, confronting the cops.
Right. I read that.
And so what happened with like Riot Ribs is it's not exactly clear, but there was this infighting, and this guy who's apparently violent and a sexual abuser, like violently forced everyone out and took it over. The Wall of Moms, and this is public record, so I'll say it outright. This group called Don't Shoot Portland that everyone looks to. The founder of it, she accused Joanne Hardesty, the only black woman she's a city council commissioner, the first black woman ever elected to city council. She was elected on a platform of police reform. That has been her one driving issue. And the founder of Don't Shoot Portland accused her of being a cop. She cop-jacketed her,
oh, wow.
which is... And the founder also, a few years ago, disrupted and hijacked an immigrant rights march that put undocumented immigrants at risk. And when organizers confronted her saying that, she was like, I don't care, right?
Wow.
So there are, let's just say, poor actors as well. And chasing after every person just because they're black is a fucking form of racism. It's tokenizing, It's racism, okay? You need to follow leaders who are good leaders, who are strategic, who know how to organize, who know how to lead the movement, not just because they're goddamn black. That doesn't make them a good leader.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree with you. I mean, it's 6% of the population is black. What are you gonna do? You gotta like if you're only gonna follow black people, then you have to get them out of their homes and be like, hey, could you come out here so I can follow you and what you're doing?
It's the ultimate tokenization to be deferring to a complete stranger whose politics you don't know or are maybe questionable with a questionable history, and being like, but you know what? I'm still going to defer to you no matter the paper trail of bad deeds and, bad faith actions that have been divisive in the organizing community.
Arun, do you feel like there are some good organizations that you would lift up and that are black led or that are, grassroots that have been doing good things?
There's this one woman who a young activist, Lilith Sinclair, who people speak really highly of, and a lot of people are looking to her, and I can't remember the name of her organization in particular, but yes, there are leaders, but I think the most important thing, and this is something I think both coming out of the global justice movement, where both of us did, and then Occupy Wall Street, it just you don't make excuses for organizing with people who you trust and respect. Of course, you listen to other people, you take seriously what they say, especially if they come from historically oppressed communities, but you just don't hand over the keys to your organizing project to anyone who comes and browbeats you and guilt trips you. It's the dumbest thing in the world, because if they're trying to take over your project, that right there is evidence that this may not be a good faith actor.
Right. And also there's there's a tendency to, I think, call, just kind of throw around, what you say, cop jacket, just call someone an op, because it's almost like it's not canceling someone, quote unquote, but it's immediately throwing something into question. And I've noticed that we throw around op a lot for things that are kind of for people and organizations that are gaining a little bit of mainstream popularity.
Right.
And it's a way of shooting yourself in the foot, I think, when it comes to building a mass movement. On a small scale, there's a really great a Twitter meme account called Accidentally Left Wing, and it grew exponentially. It's like all these like screenshots of like, oh, what's next? Free, if we make the coronavirus cure free, what's next? A free chemotherapy? And it's like Accidentally Left Wing. And it's a great account. It got big real fast. And then there was a counter thread where someone was like, no left group or meme account accidentally gets 400,000 followers in a week. And then everyone was like, yeah, that account is there. It's an op. And I'm like, it's not an op. It's just popular. We can have things that are nice. What would even be the subversive purpose of that being an op? Like, I don't know.
If it's an op, it's working.
Right. Like the grift to me is what? Sell t-shirts? It's like in general, the I feel like anytime someone says something is an op that is a left-wing thing that is gaining movement, popularity, I'm like, you're an op.
Exactly. It's like, is it an op, or maybe we're just winning?
Yeah.
Maybe we're just doing a good job.
We're winning hearts and minds.
The ribs thing was that there was a thing called Riot Ribs where people would get free food, and specifically a bunch of ribs. So it's sad that that it went down the way it went down. But Arun, I don't know, give us a lighthearted sort of foodie outro before we end this podcast. I don't know, what can we say?
Say something about food.
Say something about food that's nice.
I have not had one bit of food that's been prepared out of the home in more than 4 months.
Wow.
No, and so Francesca knows this. I'm actually trained in classical French cuisine. I used to, especially in New York City. I've not been to a restaurant, no prepared foods, no delivered foods in over 4 months. And yeah, like I've had the occasional ramen pasta noodle bowl thing. I have never eaten better in my life. I am just making all sorts of stuff from scratch, traditional.
What's the thing you're most proud of?
Italian ragu. I made this insane beef bourguignon where I got the idea from, because I'll look at like
Julie and Julia, obviously.
Well, no, because it's like being a musician where you can read sheet music, and see how to adapt it.
Right.
So I'll look at like 20 different recipes. I know how to read recipes and see what's wrong and what could potentially work. So I made it with the traditional the beef chuck, but I got an idea from another recipe to add oxtails. And because oxtails are really gelatinous, and it was just so insanely rich and delicious. But I've also been making my own tortillas.
Oh my God.
Tortillas de harina, so from flour, because
wow,
that's because Michelle and I, my partner, we went down to the U.S.-Mexico border earlier this year to report on the massive. There are all these massive refugee camps on the border, and so we were in Brownsville, Texas, which is like 95% Mexican American, and we had delicious food there, including homemade tortillas. And I'm like, they can't be that hard to make, and so I've been making. If I want tortillas, I'm like, I'm not buying them, I'm making them. And so basically, if I want it, I have to make it. Like, it's a little bit of pain in the ass, but if I want Thai curry, I have to make it. If I want Korean food, I have to make it. If I want something sweet, I've been making cookies and cakes and pies and breads, and it's just
damn it.
I've actually.
Why can't you be like Arun?
I can only make cookies.
I've actually never been eating better, not healthier, but better tasting food in my life, even though the fact I haven't been into a restaurant once.
That's inspiring as hell. I find myself falling into the same 3 stew pattern. Luckily, Matt eats chili and he doesn't mind my chili, but
it's great chili.
That's good inspiration. I'm a vegetarian now. Arun, a lot has changed since we last hung out.
It's one of the reasons why home cooked meals, it's like we have to work with what we got, and a lot of it is not meat.
Yeah.
And I know how to cook a chicken breast, but
more for me, and hey, when it gets to a certain point, okay, you guys know Mike Davis. I'm sure you like Mike Davis, right? Late Victorian Holocausts. It's just like this is about these famines in China and India, and it's one of these sweeping Mike Davis works where it's all about climate and history and just anthropology. But at one point I'm like, Holocaust that's kind of overblown. Actually, Holocaust doesn't get at it by the estimates range from 30 to 150 million dead, and this was like famines that were caused and exacerbated by British imperial policy. So at one point in China, things get so bad that like there's these accounts of like travelers are being ambushed and eaten, husbands eating wives, wives eating husbands. And it just like, it's one of those things that just kind of sticks in your brain. And it's just like, that like parents couldn't bring themselves to eat their own children. So they would trade them with other parents.
Oh, that's smart. I mean, and terrible and horrible. But it's a smart way to get around it. Like, no, you eat my kid, I eat your kid.
Oh, Jimmy is so delicious.
They'll be like, Jimmy was a really nice boy, really sweet boy. I had a lot of sugar, but.
So, you say you're vegetarian now, but,
give COVID a few more months. Oh my God. Arun Gupta, follow him on Twitter. Look up his work and his writing from The Intercept, from The Daily Beast, from Raw Story, from Washington Post. He's a gem. Thank you so much for joining us, Arun.
Thank you.
Be very well. Stay safe.
Om Shanti. I'm going to essentialize myself because
Please do. Namaste and bye.
Aloha, sayonara. Yeah.
Aloha, sayonara, Arun. And thank you all for watching, you guys. You've been just the best. Thanks for being here on this very short announced bonus episode. I learned a lot.
I learned a whole lot.
And I
learned about wobblies.
Yeah, wobblies. Look them up. And thank you guys. And remember, don't just bitch about it. Be about it. Bye.